الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا ورزقا طيبا وعملا صالحا متقبلا يا رب. اللهم ارزقنا العلم مع العمل. اللهم فقهنا في الدين واجعلنا تحت دائرة قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم من يريد الله به خيرا يفقهه في الدين والله المعطي وأنا القاسم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. MashaAllah. I know the people will be following online as well. But the hadith we're covering today is one hadith, and it's the hadith of Junaid. Who knows this incident of Junaid? No? Incident of Junaid is, there were a few children that spoke in the cradle. Okay? There were a few children who spoke in the cradle. This was one of the instances. What are the other instances that children spoke in the cradle? There's two mentioned in the Quran. Isa alayhi salam, of course. في المهدي الصبية قال إني عبد الله آتاني كتاب سورة مريم, third page. The second one is the one I just read in no سورة البروج أصحاب الأخدود قتل أصحاب الأخدود. You remember they were being thrown in the trenches. The mother was hesitant. The child in the spoke to the mother, don't be, أنت على الحق, you are upon the truth. This is one of the instances. There's two in the Quran. There's two from authentic Sunnah, and if my memory serves me correctly, Sheikh Hamid Akram al-Bukhari, he was a great muhaddith, scholar, resident in Medina. Great, wallahi, when I say like a polymath scholar, like he's an ocean of knowledge. Have you ever heard of Siyar A'lam al-Nubala? It's a large collection that is a biography of all of the different, of the Sahaba, the scholars. It's about like, let's say, it's small print, it's not big print, and it's like almost like 30 volumes. He read that 17 times. That just gives you perspective on how well read he is. Not just well read, like he has like an ocean of knowledge just in his hifz. He is a muqri of the qira'at, and he has ijazat in hadith and in Quran from hundreds of shuyukh, hundreds. Ocean of knowledge. When I see an ocean, he taught Bukhari and Muslim and all of the books of hadith inside Al-Masjid al-Nabawi, and he taught all across the world more times than you and I have read probably Arba'in an-Nawawiyya. Perspective. He's read those long collections of hadith. He's taught Musnad Imam Ahmad. That's, you know how long the collection of, just to give perspective. He said, I think 4 times it happened from authentic Sunnah and the Quran. But when I was reading through the commentary, it said that some scholars reach it till 6 or 7 children that spoke in the cradle. One of them was the witness of Yusuf. Allahu Alam, I never came across these narrations. The child of the one who the hairdresser of the daughter of Fir'aun, the Fir'aun's daughter's hairdresser. Isa alayhi salam, they added Yahya, I don't know. Jurayj, of course, Ukhdud, and the 7th one I didn't even know what it was talking about. Yeah. So there's other narrations, Allahu A'lam, but in terms of authentic Sunnah and Quran, from what I know for a fact, is the 4, the Ashab al-Ukhdud story, Isa alayhi salam, the hairdresser of the daughter of Fir'aun, and Jurayj. So we're going to go over the hadith of Jurayj. Okay, and this hadith is in both Bukhari and in Muslim. So I'll read it in Arabic first, and then we can go into the English. قال صلى الله عليه وسلم عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لم يتكلم في المهدي إلا 3 عيسى بن مريم وصاحب جريج وكان جريج رجلا عابدا فاتخذ صومعة فكان فيها فأتته أمه وهو يصلي فقالت يا جريج فقال يا ربي أمي وصلاتي فأقبل على صلاته فانصرفت فلما كان من الغد أتته وهو يصلي فقالت يا جريج فقال يا ربي أمي وصلاتي فأقبل على صلاتي فلما كان من الغد. Hadith is very long. We might skip the Arabic. We're not going to understand anyways. Go straight to, inshallah, the English part. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, sallu alaihi, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Only 3 infants spoke in the cradle. In the hadith, only 3 infants spoke in the cradle. Are there only 3 infants that spoke in the cradle? There's more. We said perhaps 6 or 7, but from authentic Quran and Sunnah that we know, at least from what I know, and ala qillat ilmi wa ujri wa bujri, Imam Zarakshi, he said, Imam Zarkashi. There's Imam al-Zamakhshari. This is Imam Zarakshi. Zarkashi. There's also Zarkashi. He said these children the 3 are specific to Banu Israel. That's what he said. Imam al-Nawawi, he said, the reason Ashab al-Ukhdud, the one I read in the first and second rak'ah, the reason that is not mentioned is because that child was not at the age of the cradle. He was a little bit older, just a little bit older. Old enough for it to be a miracle, but not young enough to be considered from the ones who spoke from the cradle. Allahu a'lam, Allahu a'lam. These are just opinions of the ulama that I am mentioning. 3 of those spoke in the cradle. Isa, second one. Secondly, an infant in the time of Jurayj. Oh, there's another one as well. Subhanallah. This is Allah. Allahu a'lam how many children spoke in humanity. How many are narrated to us and how many actually happened. Allahu a'lam. وَرُسُلًا قَدْ قَصَصْنَاهُمْ عَلَيْكَ وَرُسُلًا لَمْ نَقْصُصْهُمْ عَلَيْكَ. How many of the messengers are there that we know nothing about? Allahu a'lam how many children spoke in the cradle. So secondly, was an infant in the time of Jurayj. Jurayj was a monk, an ascetic who had built a monastery, okay, a place of ibadah for himself. One day he was inside offering salah and his mother came to him. She said, "Oh Jurayj." Jurayj thought to himself, "Ya Allah, here is my mother and I am occupied in my salah." He's doing nafil salah. So he continued offering his salah and his mother went away. The next day she came again while he was offering his salah. She said, "Ya Jurayj." He thought to himself, "Ya Allah, here is my mother and I am occupied in my salah." He continued his salah and his mother went away. The next day she came again while he was offering her salah. She said, "Ya Jurayj." He thought to himself, "Oh Allah, here is my mother and I am occupied in my salah." So he continued offering his salah. She said, "Ya Allah." She made a dua. When the mother and the parent, when they get angry, they should not make dua against their parents. What would have been better for her is to do what? Sabr. Quiet, to teach her child in a different way, Allahu a'lam. Not child, but grown adult now. But to be quiet, to be patient, to make dua for hidayah. Ya Allah, give them guidance. Ya Allah, give them hidayah. If a child ever does ill to their parent, they should say, "Ya Allah, give them hidayah." Instead of making dua against them. Because the dua of the parent and between Allah and the dua of a parent, is there anything? No. Straight shot, no hijab. Straight shot. So parents' dua is very powerful. Oh Allah, here's the mother, she made dua. She said, "Do not let him die before seeing the faces of immoral women." She said, "Do not let him die before seeing the faces of immoral women." A mother, she was angry, she made dua. She should have stayed quiet. But it's also, is it the fault of the son in this case? Yes. Is it better if you are praying nafil salah and your mother calls out to you? What are you supposed to do? Break. Unless you know, mashallah, your parent is Dr. Jamshid, then khalas, your father's not going to get mad if he finds out you're praying salah. But the fact she came 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, each time, and he's always, mashallah, nafil salah, what are you supposed to do?
But the salah is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Isn't Allah more preferred than the parent?
No, so
Prophet also said that if I was little, I wish my mother was alive, and if she called me Muhammad, I would have broken my salah.
yes. No, and there's that narration, and it's also righteousness towards the parents. Is it sunnah or wajib? Wajib. Nafil salah, what is it? Nafil. So this is a huge proof an example of the fiqh of prioritization. The fiqh of prioritization, people lack the skills of being able to prioritize, so they'll give something that more weight when something that is far more important, they give it less time. Let's say it's salah time, and someone is doing muraja'ah of Quran. Hifz al-Quran, is it something that is recommended and suggested to do? Right? Yeah, it's something that you do, very virtuous, but is it fard? Is it wajib? No. What about salah? Fard. So if someone, he says, no, I want to memorize my page, and he misses salah, like, what are you doing? Someone spends all night doing qiyam al-layl and he sleeps through fajr. Again, so these are clear examples of the fiqh of being the ability to prioritize. And this especially comes in really important when it comes to how we balance our family lives. As a husband, how do you balance being a father and a husband and a child at the same time and a son at the same time? You have to balance. What if your wife wants something and your mother wants something else? The ability to navigate these things, it's difficult. Sometimes it requires wisdom. Of course, you're not just going to be denying someone's rights for another person's rights. It requires wisdom, and it also you have to have the ability to prioritize things. This is very important in Islam. So Jurayj, he was an abid. He was a worshipper, but he was not an alim. Because an alim, a scholar, would have known that being obedient to his mother takes much more priority than a nafil salah that I'm doing. Okay? And it also teaches us balance in religion. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً. That we have to be balanced between the skills rather than leaning towards one and abandoning, for example, the call of a mother 3 times in a row. So we'll go through the hadith. So she remembers, what was the dua she made? Ya Allah, do not let him die before seeing the faces of immoral women. Now Banu Israel, they were discussing Jurayj and his ardent ways of worship, and an immoral woman who was famous for her beauty said to them, she was immoral, she said, if you wish, I will seduce him. So she went to him and offered herself to him, but he did not pay attention to her. He's a abid, he's sincere with Allah. She then went to a shepherd who used to frequent the monastery of Jurayj and allowed him to have intercourse with her. Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel. And she fell pregnant. When she gave birth to the child, she said, this child is from Jurayj. She slept with another man that used to go to that monastery. But who did she blame? Jurayj. And so the people confronted him. And for someone to do zina, it's already bad. For someone to do zina is already bad. But for example, someone who dedicates himself and is a monk, the people then they say, oh, this person, when someone does a sin, is bad. If an imam does a sin, oh my God, the dunya qamat. Isn't it true? Of course, because this person has a status. Especially in their time, khalas, this person deserves nothing but death. And the greatest, most severe punishment. A person who's the incident of Salman al-Farisi, when they found out that that monk was cheating and stealing wealth and this, that. Remember the first one? What did? They stoned his body to death. Remember, not to death, but they cast it. They put him on stakes. I think that was the narration of Salman al-Farisi. So you see, a person of worship, when they do something wrong, it's far worse. So the people confronted him, brought him down, destroyed his monastery, his place of worship. They destroyed it, and they began beating him. He asked them, "What is the problem with you? What are you doing?" They replied, "You committed adultery with this immoral woman, and she gave birth to your child." He asked, "Where is this child?" Remember, he is a wali min awliya Allah Azza wa Jalla. He is an abid. He's not an alim, he's not a scholar, but at the end of the day, he has a deep connection with Allah Azza wa Jal. Again, the reason why he wasn't even going to his mother's call, and it's mentioned in the commentaries, is because he was afraid that his mom would tell him, stop being that and go back to being a trader. Go back to the dunya and go make some money. So he was afraid of that. So, Allahu Alam. The child was brought. He asked for the child that was born from that illegitimate, They brought the child, and he said, allow me to offer salah. He performed wudu and he offered salah. He performed wudu and he offered salah. Is this in Islam? Is this during the period of Islam? Jurayj destroyed. No. I'm saying this incident of Jurayj, is it after the Prophet ﷺ or way before? Way before, right? Way before. Did they have wudu then? Did they have salah then? They had salah, perhaps a different form of salah. It still had sujood, ruku', all that. But did they have wudu? Yes. فَتَوَضَّأَ وَصَلَّى. He performed wudu and he did salah. So the scholars mentioned there's this concept in usul al-fiqh. There are many masadir, or you could say sources of Islamic knowledge. Quran, Sunnah, consensus of scholars, qiyas, the ability to use legal analogy. Another one of them, okay, it's weaker, but it still exists, is the sharia of the nations before us. Wudu was from the people of nations before us as well. Purifying yourself with water and then coming to prayer. So he did this as well. Another example of sharia from the people before us is Yusuf alayhi salam. When Yusuf alayhi salam, remember, he was the treasurer, okay? And he remember that plan that they had to make his brother Binyamin stay back. What did they do? That something of that belonged to the king was put in the bag of who? Of the brothers, but who specifically? Binyamin's, right? And then he said, فَأَذَّنَ مُؤَذِّنٌ أَيَّتُهَا الْعِيرُ إِنَّكُمْ لَسَارِقٌ قَالُوا أَقْبَلُوا عَلَيْهِمْ ماذا؟ قَالُوا نَفْقِدُ صُوَاعَ الْمَلِكِ وَلِمَنْ جَاءَ بِهِ حِمْلُ بَعِيرٍ وَأَنَا بِزَعِيمٍ. Whoever brings it, it's like saying, Dr. Jamshid, you lost your iPhone. You said, whoever finds my iPhone, or whoever finds something that I lost my keys, I'll give them $50. Or let's say you lost something that's really important, your wallet, and you say, whoever brings it to me, I'll give them this amount of money. Don't worry, just bring me my cards and my things so I don't have to stress out. Give me $200. Is this permissible in Islam? Where did we get this? Is there a hadith about this? Let's say I lost my book. I said, please, anybody who finds my book, I'll give them $50. Anybody who finds it. Is this permissible in Islam, this contract? Yes. Where do we get this ruling from? From the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. وَلِمَنْ جَاءَ بِهِ, whoever brings it, will get حِمْلُ بَعِيرٍ. And this concept in Sharia is called ja'ala or ji'ala. Okay, ja'ala. Okay? Yeah, like you're making this thing, but you can end it whenever you will. You can end it whenever you wish. Point is, can you take from the nations before? Sharia from the nations before? Circumstantially, perhaps. Depends. It can be used as a legal proof. Like in the story of Yusuf that we find in the Quran. There's some deeper talk about it, but this is one of them. Wudu was from the nations, the practice of the nations before as well. So, the child was brought and he said, allow me to offer salah. He offered salah and he came to the child, jabbed at his stomach and said, oh child, who is your father? The child replied, so-and-so shepherd. The shepherd that did the zina. The people then rushed towards Junaid, kissing him, passing their hands over him, and they said to him, we will reconstruct your monastery out of gold. We did dhulm to you. We did dhulm to you. We're going to reconstruct your model out of gold. Not just rebuild it, but we'll build it even better. And he said, no. Just make it out of clay as it was previously. And they complied. So they built it. So this is fuqaha, they take a ruling from this hadith. And that is that if you destroy destruction of someone's property, then what is due upon you is that exact amount. The same thing. So let's say someone destroys your iPhone 12. Do they buy you iPhone 10? No, iPhone 12. They buy you iPhone 12. If there is no iPhone 12 available, what do? Money. They give you the price of it. But initially they have to bring you the exact thing that they had, unless you opt out and you say that you want qima. And this is why Imam al-Bukhari in this hadith, you know the fiqh, the knowledge of Imam Bukhari and his fiqh, you find it in the chapter headings. The chapter headings of Sahih al-Bukhari tells you the fiqh of Imam al-Bukhari. So if you read Bukhari, don't ignore the chapter headings. Like, oh no, because he puts them on purpose. So in this hadith, he says, in the chapter heading under, Man hadama ha'itan bana mithlahu. Whoever destroys a ha'it, whoever destroys property, destroys something, then he builds the like of it. The same thing, you see? So this is where fuqaha get that ruling. So there's that instance. There's another instance, and we'll go over this one quickly. There was an infant who was busy drinking his mother's milk. A man who was riding a majestic horse and dressed in beautiful clothes passed by. The mother said, Ya Allah, make my son like this man. The infant left his mother's breast. Again, was on the mother's breast drinking. Turned in the direction of the man, looked at him and said, Ya Allah, do not make me like him. And then turned to his mother's breast and continued feeding. The Prophet ﷺ, while explaining this hadith, and I taught it before when I was teaching the teaching methodologies of Rasulullah ﷺ, is that he used to use his hands, he used to show with himself, right? So while he was narrating this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he took his index finger, and as he was describing the child suckling from the mother, he put his index finger in his mouth, ﷺ, like this. Like the child was doing that, you see? As he was explaining the hadith. Why did he do this? So that he can catch their attention. And so that he can make them remember. Because they'll vividly remember, so he did this? Oh, one time he said, whoever shows humility for Allah, Allah will raise him. Whoever is arrogant, Allah will put him down. You see how Rasulullah uses his hand gestures and all of this? This is one of the examples. And then they passed by a slave girl who was being beaten and accused. You committed adultery, you stole. All the while she replied by saying, Ya Allah, Allah is sufficient for me. Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel. This woman, she was getting beat. She's a slave. Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel. Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel. The mother said, Ya Allah, do not make my son like her. She looked at her, low in society. The infant stopped feeding, looked at the girl and said, Ya Allah, make me like her. Now the mother and infant began conversing with each other. The mother said, when a majestic and stately man passed by, I said, Ya Allah, make my son like this man. But you said, Ya Allah, do not make me like him. Then when some people were beating the slave girl and saying, you committed adultery, she said, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel. What is the reason behind this? What is the reason behind this? Because that man was a tyrant. So the child said, Ya Allah, do not make me like this man. Whereas the girl whom they were accusing, and she was low in the dunya, she did not do those things that she was being accused of, and she was always saying, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel. She was close to Allah despite being low in society. So the infant said, Ya Allah, make me like her. Again, another instance where a child spoke in the cradle. A few lessons that we could take from this hadith. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً قُولُوا آمين. Say Ameen. Being balanced, that we learn from the story of Junaid. Another thing that we learn from this is that fard salah cannot be broken unless there is a genuine need. If a person passes out in salah, Dr. Jimshid, are you allowed to break your salah and assist that man? If a person, like you're praying next to someone, let's say, and that person passes out, are you allowed to break your salah to help them and assist them? Yes. If there is a genuine need, yes. Should the jama'ah still continue? Yes, the jama'ah still continue. Unless, mashallah, there's someone, some big catastrophe happens in the masjid, like a giant earthquake, then of course everyone's going to break their salah and leave. But if it's like maybe someone passed out, this happened to me. Someone passed out in salah, I was so shocked and scared, I thought the person died. But I knew that the 4 or 5 brothers that were there, they would take care of it. I quickly finished my salah, Qul huwallahu ahad, and then we went to assist that brother. They already took care of him, you see. But the people, some people should take that responsibility. But nafil salah, can you break it if someone is calling on you, for example, like your parent? Yes, you can. Unless you know, your parent knows that if you are praying, he's not going to have a problem with it. If you have a religious father, a religious mother, and you know that if they know you're praying nafil salah, they're going to be like, alhamdulillah, my son is worshipping Allah. They're not going to be upset. Another benefit that we take from this hadith is, of course, the right of the parents. We take from this hadith the right of the parents, that despite him doing worship of Allah, when it comes to the right of the parents, Allah puts it so high. It's wajib. There's a principle in Sharia, إِذَا تَعَارَضَتِ الْأُمُورُ بُدِئَ بِأَهَمِّهَا. If there are conflicting things, especially for students, college students, if there are conflicting things and conflicting tasks that you have to do, begin with the most important. Prioritization. If you have to memorize your Quran and you have to pray your salah first and then do that. You have to study and you have to do this. Prioritize. What is more important? Spending time with friends or the test that you have tomorrow? Again, prioritization. This is very important for all people to have. And the last thing we can say, and I'll end with this, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, is that the miracles of the pious and the messengers are an established fact. All of Ahlul Sunnah, we believe that the people that are pious, the true close friends of Allah Azza wa Jal, they are granted miracles by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And sometimes even when they seek it themselves, Allah gives them miracles. وَمَن يَتَقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. Allah makes a way out for them. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from His awliya, to make us from those people that practice the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Sallallahu ala nabina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Thank you so much for being patient with me. You guys are the only 2 people here. You didn't have to stay.
I had a question, but I forgot now. What was it? About the wudu.
Yes.
In the Quran, there is verse about how to make wudu.
Of course. إِذَا قُمْتُمْ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ فَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ وَأَيْدِيكُمْ. 2 times it comes.
So, if it is already there in the previous practice,
Yes.
Allah is still mentioned in the Quran.
Of course. Salah is in the previous
But
things.
the method of wudu may be different. Or maybe
The method of wudu can be different. Allahu alam. We have our specific way of style of doing wudu. We also have our specific way of doing salah as well. Like a specific way. Takbiratul ihram, subhanakallahumma, suratul fatiha. They didn't have all of this stuff. They didn't have Quran that they're reciting tasbih. Allahu alam how their salah was, how their wudu was. We just know that it's mentioned and narrated. Yeah. One thing I wanted to mention, in Surah Al-Buruj, you both have Surah Al-Buruj memorized. Allah in the story where He talks about the incident of the people that were killed and thrown into the trenches. At the end of the surah, He says, بَلْ هُوَ قُرْآنٌ فِي. What does the authenticity of the Quran, the preservation of the Quran, and the fact that it is protected in Al-Lawh al-Mahfuz have to do with قُتِلَ أَصْحَابُ الْأُخْدُودِ? What's the correlation?
It's something that, the Mahfuz could be the hearts of the people as well. Even if they destroy people, the Quran is still preserved.
No, it's more so to give tathbeet. It's more so to make them firm on what they're doing. Because what is in the Quran and what they're this thing that they're doing and they're sacrificing their lives for, is not something that's shaky, It's something that's established in the Quran. And the Quran is something that is so preserved that it's preserved in Al-Lawh al-Mahfuz. So Allah is reminding them that the Quran that you're following, or not the Quran that you're following, but this message that you're following, and it's of course for us now, the message of the Quran is not something to be taken lightly. This is something that Allah has preserved in Al-Lawh al-Mahfuz. So when you sacrifice for the religion of Allah Azza wa Jal, like we see in Palestine for example, بَلْ هُوَ قُرْآنٌ مَجِيدٌ فِي لَوْحٍ مَحْفُوظٍ. This is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives and He reminds us of to keep us firm. Allahumma thabbit qulubna. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum. Barakallahu feekum. Salam.